patterns everywhere. Masha lost astrological history of the world. Baghdad 762. The location was perfect for a new capital city. There were, of course, the standard prophecies that a great metropolis was destined to arise here. Even more persuasive, perhaps, were the reports that of all the districts along the Tigris River, the site was said to be the least infested with mosquitoes. But the main reason of the Caliph Abu Jabbar al-Mansur chose to build his capital at Baghdad was that, with the absorption of Persia into Dar al-Islam, the abode of Islam, that has spread further east, and Baghdad now lay right at its heart. But what good is the right place if it's not only the right time? Accordingly, Ansur was summoned his top astrologers, now backed as a Persian and Masha a Jew, to determine the optimal moment to inaugurate construction. Remarkably, the horoscope of Baghdad's foundation has been preserved in the writings of al-Biruni, one of the foremost astronomers of a few centuries later played 9. Baghdad's founding can therefore be dated with especially his high confidence to the afternoon of July 30 in the year 762. A glance of figure 7.1 leaves no doubt as to why the moment was chosen. At the precise instant, Jupiter, the planet of kingdoms and dynasties, was rising in the east, while Mars, the planet of war, was setting in the west. Indeed, no horoscope could have been more appropriate for a city that Al-Mansur instituted, be called Madinat as-Salam, the city of peace. A golden age, a cosmic aspiration embedded in Baghdad's construction, did not go unfulfilled, at least initially. Within a few decades after its horoscope was cast, Baghdad has grown into the single largest city on earth. The commerce of the world from India, China, Africa, and Europe flow into and out of its three concentric circular walls through enormous iron gates. This was the Baghdad of the Thousand Nights and a Night, a city of wise caliphs and their clever viziers, of camel caravans and their Silk Road spices, of slender minarets soaring over bookseller stalls, and decked up archways lined with star patterned with tiles, and also what never fails to enkindle the modern imagination with romantic vision of medieval Baghdad. This was the city of the much storied Bait al-Hikmah, the house of wisdom, where the caliphs of the Abbasid dynasty are supposed to have invited the world's greatest scholars to study, debate, and create anew all of the branches of earthly and celestial knowledge. Whether the House of Wisdom ever existed as an actual research institute, like a modern university, or was simply one of the several names for the royal library, there's no question that Baghdad was home to an extraordinary burst of intellectual energy. Beginning with Al-Mansur, the Abbasid caliphs oversaw an ambitious and remarkably comprehensive program of translating Greek philosophical texts into Arabic. Under the Caliph al-Mamun, the city's philosophic focus shifted increasingly to the natural sciences. Al-Ma'mun was patron to both al-Kindi, called by his contemporaries the philosopher of the Arabs, and the great mathematician Al-Khwarizmi. It's Al-Khwarizmi's Latin name, algorithmi, that gives us the word algorithm, and its book Kitab al-Jabr wal book of rectifying and balancing, that gives us the word algebra. As a crowning monument to Al-Ma'mun's enthusiasm for science, he ordered the construction of two astronomical observatories, one in Baghdad and the second near Damascus. To this, he designed the grand endeavors of updating the celestial and terrestrial data in Ptolemy's Almagest and geography. On account of the illustrious names associated with Abbasid Baghdad, the era is commonly referred to as the Golden Age of Islamic science. This is an awkward phrase, so to say the least, and one that evidences the awkwardness Western histories often have when attempting to fit this period into narratives of the development of modern science. At a minimum, it makes more sense to speak about Arabic science, which, it should be noted, is really a straightforward level about language, not ethnicity, just as much of Greek science was the achievement of individuals like Archimedes from Sicily and Ptolemy from Egypt, whose greatness is, at the very least, debatable. A great deal of Arabic science was the work of individuals who may not have been Arab or even Muslim. In fact, many of the Abbasid era luminaries, including Al-Khwarizmi and Al-Biruni, were partly Persian. The notion of Arabic science, therefore, is meaningful especially because among its multi-ethnic, multilingual, and multi-religious practitioners, it was the Arabic language which provided a common framework of text and terminology. This is the same unifying role that the Greek language played in the science of Roman times, and the same role that increasingly the English language plays in science today. But beyond these pitfalls of basic terminology, historians of science looking for a shortcut between Rome and the Renaissance still find themselves forced to dance around two particularly thorny questions. Did Arabic science accomplish anything beyond merely preserving Greek science long enough for Europe to recover from its dark ages? And if, and if it did, which why did the scientific revolution happen only in Europe while the Islamic world sank back into a deep scientific slumber? Astrology can't avoid getting wrapped up in all this since it was cultivated with particular enthusiasm at the time. But can advances in the theory and practice of astrology be counted as advances in science? I find these questions about the achievements of Arabic science to be quite curious. Not on account of the issue itself, the scientific strides made during the era were enormous, but because they expose how we often focus on all the wrong things when thinking about what science actually is. And by wrong things, I mean that there's an unmistakable tendency to fixate on abstract metaphysical ideas to the exclusion of everything else. As a case in this point, the assertion that the earth revolves around the sun and not the other way is clearly an important statement about our universe. And yet, as we saw earlier, Aristarchus of Samos proposed a sun-centered cosmos thousands of years before Copernicus. Evidently, a correct theoretical idea can be the only ingredient needed for a scientific revolution. Nevertheless, the common perception seems to be that the technological and material advances of Renaissance Europe were somehow the result of Copernicus correctly centering the cosmos and not the other way around, or to phrase things in a way more in keeping with the themes of this book, recognize in the history of science a correlation between a society's technological capabilities and its theoretical knowledge. I argue, however, that in almost every instance, we get the question exactly backward. Which brings us back to Baghdad, a city that, under the Abbasids, made tremendous contributions to math and science, astronomy in particular. But since the Abbasid University remains steadfastly geocentric, history books written as the triumph of the ideas get stuck with the awkward conclusion that how much Arabic science should be commended for its efforts, none of it actually mattered. I disagree with this wholeheartedly. Purely intellectual histories are, to be perfectly blunt, and if not downright prompted, by the material and technological world of those who think them. Consider, for instance, the lot of an astronomer in medieval Baghdad as compared to his predecessor in Greco-Roman Alexandria. Although both operated under the assumption that the sun revolved around the earth, our Baghdadi astronomer could consult significantly more accurate astronomical tables, compiled from observations taken by larger and significantly more precise instruments. He was able to express his measurements using Hindu numerals, the digits 0 to 9, instead of the clunky Greek practice of using letters the alphabet. These calculations could be performed by referencing tables of trigonometric functions instead of having to rely on Ptolemy's tedious method of counts. And he could write on cheap and abundant paper a trade secret smuggled out of China instead of costly papyrus or parchment. More importantly, he worked in a milieu in which the shortcomings of Ptolemy's system were known and actively investigated. A tradition began in earnest with Ibn al-Haytam's book Al-Sukuk al-Badlamius doubts on Ptolemy. And to add an exclamation point to all this, the Arabic world offered access to the indispensable accelerant of scientific thought, coffee, an elixir entirely unknown to sleepy antiquity. Copernicus, in his turn, was beneficiary of each of these developments, except for coffee, which did not really filter into Europe until 1600s. The point here is that while Copernicus' book truly was revolutionary, it is not as if he was sitting alone in a room with nothing but his thoughts and a copy of Almagest. He was, as all scientists are, the inheritor of an oftentimes visible intellectual infrastructure built piece by those who had come before him, naming the stars. For his part, Copernicus was never shy about acknowledging his debt to Arabic astronomers. In his famous De Revolutionibus, he cited no fewer than five of them by name: Al-Batani, Al-Pituji, Al-Sakali, Ibn Gust, Averroes, and Tabit ibn Qura. But even more obvious evidence that Europe's scientific renaissance wasn't simply an reintroduction of Greek science, mediated by 1,000 years of technical refinements, can be seen in the stars themselves, or rather in the names of the top 20 brightest stars in the sky. Then are still called by names derived from Arabic, and when we consider the top 100, this number jumps to 72. This transmission into Europe came partly through paper and ink, as Arabic star catalogs such as Al-Subi's Book of Constellation of the Fixed Stars were transcribed and copied, but just as significantly, this transit of stars names also came. This transit of star names came also in metal engraved over those instruments, which provided mechanical armature of sort of the development of both astronomy and astrology as today. Although the astronomy is often held up as the iconic artifact of Arabic science, this a bit misleading science, as discussed previously. The instrument origins as indisputably Alexandrian. Nevertheless, the oldest surviving astrolabes, dating from around the year 900, all creations of the Abbasid period. Over the course of several centuries of manufacture within the Islamic world, these instruments were refined to an absolutely exquisite level of elegant precision. Appropriately enough, the most distinct way for an astrolabe maker to flout his artistry was in how he depicted the stars. On an astrolabe, pointers to prominent stars are attached to a decorative framework called the rete in Arabic or shabaka in Arabic. Both words means net. Figure 7.2. Together, together in together with the ecliptic cycle, the rete completes stereographic map of the sky which, when rotated clockwise around the instrument, simulates the daily rotation of the heavens around the earth. Although the positions of the star pointers are fixed by astronomy, the visual design of the rete is left entirely to whim of the astrolabes. Arabic astrolabes sport retes that the very warm simple geometric connectors to stunningly elaborate intertwining plant and animal shapes. Plate 10. But astrolabes were just a pretty way to model a cosmos frozen in time since Ptolemy's day. Successive generations of astrolabes incorporated many of the latest advances of Arab science, such as Hindu numerals and diagrams from computing tangents and cotangents. Some even made accommodations for the slow motion of Earth perihelion, a phenomenon completely unknown to Ptolemy. Thus, no less than by copying text, European astronomers became aware of the latest advances of Arabic astronomy by copying Arabic astrolabes and carefully tracing out the star pointers of an Arabic rite. It is hardly surprising that Arabic that the Arabic star name engraved by each one were carefully transcribed too. Planets that pass in the night. Yet what about the second of those two occasions without this idea? How could a city like Baghdad, which has ascended to the zenith of science, subsequently find itself so thoroughly eclipsed, and by northern Europe of all places, a region which began that era still stuck in a state of semi-literate barbarity? It's a question which rattles distinguishingly even today, especially for those of us with a stake in the continued success of American science. What gives America its technological edge, and how long can it be kept? Quite clearly, it's not because we're smarter. American students routinely perform abysmally in international assessments of math, science, and reading skills. But this was true when my dad was in school and the Russians were promising to bury us. This was true when I was in school in Japan in cooperation seems unstoppable, and this remains true today, even though our national anxieties have shifted once again, this time onto China. Yet somehow, in spite of it all, America continues to be the worst science and technology leader, at least well now. So what is it in the grand pageant of history that permits a nation of people to claim the mantle of science, and what compels them to lay it down again once their time has passed? Curiously, in the case of Abbasid Baghdad, I think that both a modern and a medieval observer would come to the same one word conclusion: astrology. Looking back at Baghdad's founding, there's a very strong case to be made that it was man's personal obsession with astrology that was the not so secret impetus for his city's scientific pursuits. Certainly, the most panic translation of Greek text into Arabic appears a lot less eccentric if it's understood as part of a government initiative to harness the power of the stars. Wherever the truth might lie, it's undeniably the case that astrological texts were heavily represented among the earliest titles illustrated in Baghdad. The Caliph and his close advisors would not, I think, have disagreed with this assessment. Prior to seizing the Caliphate, al-Mansur had cultivated his power base among the conquered provinces of Persia. There, in return, he himself was influenced by a Persian tradition which saw the fall of Persia and the rise of the Arabs in explicitly astrological terms. Just as the planets rose and set in their allotted times, so too it was said did kingdoms, dynasties, and even religions. One of the earliest expositors of this idea was none other than Masha, the astrologer handpicked by the Caliph to cast the horoscope for this new capital city. Very little is known about Mashiach's life except that he is usually described as a Jew. Given his name and his circumstances, however, it would not be surprising as if he was rather Jewish convert to Islam. Several centuries after his death, Mashiach would become famous in medieval Europe as Masala, the author of one of the most widely read treatises on the astrology. In true medieval tradition, however, this was actually a Latin translation of someone else's Arabic astrology manual. But Mashiach's principal impact on history occurred during his stint at the court of the Abbasid caliphs. There, he introduced a theory of understanding how history itself could be understood according to the cycles of astrology. The most important of these cycles, insofar as they were said to herald events of global significance, were the successive conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn, the outermost planet visible to the naked eye, takes about 30 years to complete an orbit around the zodiac. Jupiter, the largest and the next most distant planet, takes about 12 years. As these two astral giants chase each other around the ecliptic, Jupiter will catch up to and pass Saturn roughly once every 20 years. The moment when these planets or any two heavenly bodies line up in ecliptic longitude is called a conjunction, and as a curious consequence of orbital mechanics, every conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn occurs almost exactly one-third of the way around the zodiac from the spot of the previous conjunction. Thus, three successive Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions were traced out and are most perfect equilateral triangle in the sky. To give an example, if Jupiter and Saturn come into conjunction in the zodiac sign of Aries, then approximately 20 years later, the next conjunction can be expected to occur in Sagittarius. The following conjunction 20 years after that will be in Leo, and the conjunction after that again some 20 years later will cycle back to Aries. Recall that Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo are the three zodiac signs associated with the element of fire. Thus, in this example, the sequence of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions occurred entirely within the triangle of fire signs, a pattern also known as a fiery trigon of triplicity. Of course, the astral triangles traced out this way don't exactly overlap, and so after about 10 conjunctions, or roughly 200 years, the entire pattern ends up migrating to the next triplicity of signs over a period of about 800 years. Therefore, the sequence of Jupiter and Saturn conjunctions will slowly cycle to all four triplicities: the fiery triplicity of Aries, Sagittarius, and Leo, the triplicity of Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo, the triplicity of Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra, and the watery triplicity of Cancer, Pisces, and Scorpio. Mashallah and his successors saw in this sequence of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions an organizing for the entire history of the world. Local political changes, they suggested, were argued by the regular or later conjunctions that occur roughly once every 20 years, larger shifts of kingdoms and dynasties, occurring about once every 200 years, were heralded by middle conjunctions on the sequence migrates from one triplicity to another. Finally, the most momentous historical upheavals, such as the fall of the empires or the rise of the new religions, were portended by great conjunctions. These occur only once in a millennium, when the sequence of conjunctions has completed a full cycle to all four zodiac triplicities: fire, earth, air, and water. The conjunction theory of history is, without a doubt, the most significant addition to astrology since Roman times. It's believed to represent an infusion of several ideas from the ancient cosmologies of Persian India. Indeed, Mashallah conjunction calculations have proven invaluable to historians wishing to reconstruct the lost parameters of Persian astronomy as it was practiced just prior to the Arab conquest. The chronology Mashallah developed with this theory placed the creation of the universe in the year 8292 BC compared to the traditional Jewish creation date of 3761 BC. This is at least a little closer to modern astronomers' estimate for the age of the universe, albeit one that's still shy by about 14 billion years. Only the planets in Mashallah's universe remain completely motionless for the first 2,500 years. The first conjunction of Jupiter's Saturn to the year 5783 BC and occurred in the sign of Taurus. Mashallah then proceeds to hop through the history of the world, conjunction by conjunction, posing only the comment on a select few whose horoscopes he deemed to be especially history-altering. First, there's the Great Flood, which he dates to 3361 BC, and which occurred naturally during the watery deficit. After leaping past several cycles of great conjunctions, he arrives at the year 36 BC, when the sequence of conjunctions shifted from watery to a fairy triplicity. According to Mashallah, this trans heralded the birth of Christ and the advent of the Christian era. It also adds the interesting spin to John the Baptist's prophecy that, although he baptized with water, the one who followed him will baptize with fire. Skipping ahead a half millennium, Mashallah next examines the conjunction of the year 571, which brought the seconds back to another water triplicity. This transfer precedes the birth of Muhammad and the rise of the Arabs, whose sign, according to Mashallah, the watery sign of Scorpio. Finally, arriving at the events of his own day, Mashallah regarded the conjunction of the year 769, a conjunction which ended the watery triplicity and began a new fairy triplicity, as an indicator of an ebb in Arab power and a reciprocal resurgence of Persia. This was the triplicity of the Abbasid caliphs, who, both in their politics and their marriages, did indeed pursue a rapprochement of sorts with their Persian subjects. As for Mashallah himself, it's believed that he died around the year 815. As for Mashallah himself, it's believed that he died around the year 115. He did, however, extend his chronology a bit further into the future, where he foresaw entirely accurately, although rather unimaginatively, continued political strife between Arabs and Persians. Cracking the code. Table 7.2 recreates Mashallah's chronology of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions using modern planetary data. It starts with the very triplicity of 36 BC and keeps going until the closest future fiery triplicity, slated to begin in the year 2338. The first thing this table reveals is that Masha lost approximations for the orbital periods of Jupiter and Saturn were actually pretty decent, since the years he gives for the clear conjunctions match the modern dates fairly well. The biggest difference is that, unlike in the Martial law scheme, there is not a sub-transition between one and one triplicity next. Instead, the seconds dance to little a bit between triplicities before its shift is fully complete. A more subtle difference arises from the fact that occasionally Jupiter or Saturn or both will be in retrograde during a conjunction. This transforms what would otherwise be a straightforward single conjunction into a quick succession of three conjunctions as one or both of those planets' motions appears from the vantage point of the Earth to change direction. These later orbital dosidos typically take about 6 months to complete, so the dating of one of these Jupiter-Saturn conjunction triplets, shown in all caps, will sometimes span to adjacent calendar years. Overall, though the pattern of small, middle, and great conjunctions still stands out perfectly clearly in the modern data, it's a charmingly gratifying system, and I think anyone with a knack for historical dates will have a hard time not getting engrossed by its narrative possibilities, where the renewed conquest of Islam and the Ottomans due to return of voluntary triplicity. Conversely, is the Middle East more susceptible to European invasion, be it by crusaders or colonialists. When an LTTPCT holds sway, maybe not, and yet slicing up history into TPCT seems hardly more arbitrary than, say, the ancient medieval and Renaissance periods were taught in school. In fact, astrologically organized histories were considered quite scientific during this medieval period of upheaval during the seventh great conjunction cycle between the very triplicity of 769 and 1603. The most prominent popularizer of this approach was Abu Masha, the preeminent astrologer of Baghdad during the regeneration after Mashallah. Among its notable proponents was Abraham ibn Ishaq, medieval Spain's famed Jewish poet and philosopher, who inserted the theory into his commentary on Exodus. Christian chronologies were similarly stepped up. The dead return of the fiery triplicity in 1603, a year which saw the death of England's Queen Elizabeth I, were examined at length by no less an authority than the astronomer Johannes Kepler. Several history writers even went so far as to rely on the scene for some pretty bold predictions and assessments. The German monk Johannes Tritemius, for example, writing around the year 1500, bluntly asserted that liberty would not be restored to the Jews prior to on August 1880. In fact, this is more or less exactly when the first wave of Zionist settlers immigrated to Ottoman Palestine. The medieval faculty of Paris blamed the Black Plague, which arrived in Europe in 1347, on a corruption of the atmosphere caused by the conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars in the year 1345. But most notoriously of all, the French Catholic Cardinal Pierre de Haye, writing around the year 1500, concluded his astrological history of the world with a warning to the Antichrist could be expected to arrive in the year 1789. Depending on our reactionary your views regarding the French Revolution, this may strike you as a humorously prescient prediction, with so many possible patterns correlating with so many historical storylines. What is more to make of the conjunction theory of history? Unlike with the other astrological sections, when an analysis might entail an elaborate hunt for the faintest hint of a correlation, here the correlations seem to leap out from everywhere. But are any of them genuine? This is roughly analogous to the engineering distinction between noise, where nothing looks like a signal, and clutter, where everything looks like a signal. Perhaps, though an even better analogy can be made to cryptology, history here becomes like a secret code that we want to know if astrology is its key. The art of concealing a message secret writing is called cryptography, and its practice is as old as writing itself. But to decipher secret messages without its skill requires cryptanalysis, and this emerged as a science only in Islamic times, embedded under the Abbasids. Within each of the three Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there has long been a tradition that, side by side with their sacred scriptures, God's truth can also be read inscribed in the book of Nature. And just as God's prophets often spoke in parables, so too is Nature similarly enshrouded in mysteries and riddles. Accordingly, whoever would seek out on the truth of the world must first learn to interpret its secret signs. It's fitting, therefore, that the father of cryptanalysis was a man who was both deeply devout and deeply mathematical. He was also, it should be no surprise to learn, deeply obsessed with astrology. This was Abu Yusuf Yaqub ibn Ishaq al-Kindi. To the extent that idea of Islam's golden age has any currency, it's al-Kindi's stamp that it bears. It was through its initiative that the hideous work of Greek philosophy were revived with such slowness and zeal beyond his own books on metaphysics, medicines, and music. Is to list just a few, Al-Kindi also wrote extensively on astrology. On the empirical side, this included investigations into astrological weather forecasting. Meanwhile, on the more theoretical side, his treatise on race has to be history's most brilliant attempt to give astrology and magic a firm philosophical foundation. Here, Alkindi expands on the idea, implicit in earlier authors such as Ptolemy, that the physical reason why the stars and the planets influence the Earth is because of their emission of cosmic rays. But Alkindi takes this a step further by suggesting that this rays, although impossible to prevent, can be amplified or impeded by means of suitably chosen words, symbols, and images. Since words, symbols, and images are themselves propagated across time and space through rays of light and sound, Alkindi presciently figures our modern age of advertising and agitprop by arguing that these too can be manipulated to bring about specific actions in those who receive them. As Al-Kindi recognized, the art of writing is really an act of magic. Its power is to transmit those thoughts and emotions across vast distances, using nothing more than a few squiggly symbols. By necessity, then, the efficacy of this magic will be hinged upon the witness of the symbols to their task. Nowhere is this more evident than in mathematics. If you don't believe me, try adding the Roman numerals together. or even worse, the Greek numerals. Given Alkindi's sensitivity to the power of symbols, is altogether apt that he, together with his famous contemporary Al-Kharizmi, was instrumental in promoting the adoption of Hindu numerals. The magic of this system derived from the digit zero, which permits, though its use as a placeholder, a natural number to be expressed with just 10 abstract characters. In the modern form, there are the familiar 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. The Arabic word for the zero or the digit zero is sifr. When the system was introduced into Europe by Fibonacci, he of the famous Fibonacci sequence, sifr, was Latinized as zefiro, a transliteration that gave rise both to the word zero and the word cipher. To medieval Europeans, who were used to seeing a quantity like 1202 written as the characters 1202 doubtless did look like a secret code or Chiba. In this, its modern sense, Chiba signifies a special type of algorithm which maps symbols to symbols. For instance, using the Chiba that shifts each letter 3 positions to the right in English alphabet A to D. The word astrology is conceived as living in Baghdad, where transcription, translation, and interpretation goes to the level of a spiritual calling no less than intellectual one. Al-Kindi would have been well aware of the power of symbol to conceal, but through his magic of compelling symbols to reveal their secrets, Al-Kindi outstriving all of his predecessors, his manuscripts, his manuscript of deciphering cryptographic messages was the first to show that so long as the statistical frequency of each letter in language is now simple ciphers like the one above can always be cracked. For example, the most common letter in this is A. Therefore, with a sufficiently long sample of encrypted text, we should be able to recognize that the most frequently occurring symbol is really just A in this case. This procedure called frequently analysis remains integral to the methods of mathematical cryptanalysis even today. Knowledge is power, and yet not all of the universe's secrets are encrypted with a cipher. Therefore, not all of the universe's secrets are susceptible to the mathematical tricks of the serpent. Occasionally, some of the deepest secrets can be found hiding right before our eyes. This practice of concealing a message in plain sight, so to speak, is called steganography from the Greek stego, meaning to cover, and gravo to write. Steganography is a much more devious craft than conventional cryptography since, while it's obvious that a text receiver is concealing a secret message, however difficult it may be to decipher, that the object of steganography is to reflect your suspicion that there's any secret at all. Simply put, anything can and most everything has, historically, been used to cloak secrets in settings that are otherwise perfectly public, be it poetry, music, botanical drawings, and even star charts. Could astrology likewise be used as a cover for secret communication? In fact, as recently as 1996, a hidden message was discovered to have been concealed in the astrological tables of a notorious occult manuscript from 1500s. The mischievous monk who devised this scheme was Johannes Tritemius, whose astrological prediction concerning the political fortunes of the Jews was cited earlier. Remarkably, Tritemius even went so far as to write an entire book about steganography, which, appropriately enough, he disguised to make it look like a book of magical spells for summoning spirits. A pretty neat trick, don't you think? Second general condition stipulated by the Friedmans is that your supposition must be unique. as they demonstrated so colorfully in the book. A description method which tells you that Francis Bacon was a true author of Shakespeare's plays can hardly be valid if the same method applied to the same text can also be used to reveal that Theodore Roosevelt, Gertrude Stein, and even William Friedman himself were in on the plot. In other words, the significance of any one solution is diminished in accordance with how easy it is to produce competing, if not contradictory, solutions. As the Friedmans put it, just as there is only one valid solution to a scientific or mathematical problem, so there is only one valid solution to a cryptogram. To find two quite different but equally valid solutions would be an absurdity. Thus, whatever you conclude about the conjunction theory of history should probably depend upon how uniquely you think it correlates with one sequence of historical dates and not any others. Thus, this in turn suggests a pattern matching game. For instance, looking back at just the last 200 years, we can note a remarkably strong correlation between the 9 most recent Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions and the terms of US presidents who either died in office, were assassinated, or survived a near-death mishap, level 7.3. And that's just for the starters. We could, if we wish, also note an intriguing connection between these conjunctions and the development of space exploration. 1907 or 1901, Owen Wilbur Wright experiment with power flight. 1921, Robert Goddard experiments with liquid fuel rocketry. 1941, Werner von Braun begins development of the V2 rocket. 1961, Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space. 1981, the maiden launch of Columbia, the first space shuttle. 2000, the initial manned mission arrives at the International Space Station. And yet, maybe the true cosmic significance of a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is to ensure that New York Yankees make it to the World Series, as indeed they have in every conjunction year since the game has been played. 1921, 1941, 1961, 1981, and 2000. So how many patterns can you pick out? But whether you predict, get ready, the next Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is coming fast. It's scheduled for December 21, the set date of the winter solstice in the year 2020.